We've been open almost a year now, and today I want to show you exactly what I've learned about our store's numbers since opening. Now, this isn't the plan or some fictional idea about how things should have gone for us. I thought it would be helpful to share the real month-by-month data for my first 10 months open as Spineless Reads. How much books we sold, how much merch we moved, and what all of it looks like when you line it up against the seasons of the book selling year. Because in this industry, we talk about seasons constantly. Oh, we're heading into the holiday rush. We're in the quiet season now. Summer's coming. The J months are the worst, right? You've heard all of this stuff. That's the slowest time of year. Everybody says these things. So I want to hold my real numbers up against the conventional wisdom and find out, was any of it true? And did my first year actually follow the rhythm everyone talks about? Some of it did. Some of it absolutely did not. Let's get into it. Quick ground rules so these numbers mean something. I'm going to show you two things for each stretch: books sold and merchandise sold. Just unit counts, how many books walked out the door, and how many pieces of merch, the totes, the candles, the stickers, all that stuff. I'm not putting my bank statements on the internet, sorry. And honestly, bank balances don't tell the full story. When I was planning the store, I asked the same question a lot of prospective bookstore owners ask me now. How many books do you sell every month to cover your bills? Even without my bank statements, these two numbers tell the real story of how this business actually moves through a year. And I'm going to be honest with you about every bit of it. And one important disclaimer up front: I've only been open for one trip around the calendar. So I've only seen each season exactly once. That's enough to notice patterns, but it's not enough to prove them. So everything I'm going to say about the fall season or the summer slowdown, take it as, here's my first time through and what it looked like, not here's a law about book selling. I'll actually know how solid these patterns are once I've been through a few years. All right, let's start at the beginning. So we opened September 27th of 2025, which is literally the final few days of the month. So these numbers nicely capture our opening week. We sold 315 books and 35 pieces of merchandise. Now, 315 books in a partial opening month is pretty good. I'll take that. Then October hit. Our first full month is a brick and mortar, and the numbers get really interesting. So books jumped to 1,089. That's my single biggest book month of the whole first year in business, right out the gate. And November stayed huge too, with 1,075 books sold. Now, the industry wisdom says sales will build as you head into the holidays, and my merch followed that script perfectly. It climbed from 35 pieces of merchandise in September to 85 in October and 194 in November. So steady build, right on cue. But the books did something the conventional wisdom sometimes does not predict. They didn't build toward the holidays. They kind of peaked in October and started drifting downward from there. And my honest read is that the book sales weren't lifted by the holiday season. I believe they were lifted by my opening. The brand new bookstore in town, everyone's curious, everybody comes to check it out, grab a few books, support us. It's great, right? But it does impact these numbers. My book sales were riding the opening buzz, not just a holiday boost. And that's a lesson that I learned very early on. When you open matters, because your opening surge will influence the normal seasonal pattern in your first year. Now let's talk about December. This is like the big one in retail. The month a lot of people will assume is absolutely going to be your best of the year. So I sold 891 books and 309 pieces of merchandise. And look what happened there, because this may be the most important comparison in the whole video. My books actually came down in December from around 1,075 in November to only 891 in December. But my merchandise hit its absolute peak, which was 309 pieces. And that's the highest merchandise sale of the entire 10 months. So what's with the split? They're two different products doing two very different jobs. Late in the year, people come into a bookstore and they're shopping for gifts. And a lot of time that gift is a tote bag or a candle or some type of fun bookish gift. It's not necessarily a novel. So my merch went gift season crazy and my books settled back from that opening high. Now, I want to call back to my video about bookstore profits, because this is the data that proves that point that I made in that video specifically. Remember I told you merch carries a better margin than books? Meaning it's like often what keeps our lights on? Well, watch what merch did as a share of what I sell. Back in September, merch sold at 35 units against 315 books. That's roughly 10%. By December, it's 309 pieces of merchandise against 891 books, and that's over a third of what we sold. Merch didn't just grow, it grew into one of the most important things in the entire shop. So let's see if that trend holds. Okay, so what about after the holidays are over? In this industry, everybody talks about the quiet season. That stretch between the holiday rush and the spring pickup, everything just gets quiet. And for me, the conventional wisdom was spot on. Here's what quiet looked like in my real numbers. In January, my books dropped to 597 books sold. My merchandise was 170. In February, we sold 542 books and 199 pieces of merchandise. And in March, we sold 496 books and 213 pieces of merch. So my books fell off a cliff from the holiday and opening high, from 900 to the 1,000 range, all the way down to like 500. And then they stay there. That's the quiet season. It's exactly like everyone says it's going to be. And the town's less curious about the new shop. The holiday gift rush is over. Everyone's settling into like their reality, right? And so we settled into our reality. Our new baseline is the bookstore. So for all the aspiring owners out there, here's a little something I hope is helpful. I know the drop seems scary, but I want you to remember that the drop is normal. It's not a sign that your business is failing. It's just the season. If you open in the fall like I did, riding that opening buzz and that holiday energy, January is going to feel like the floor fell out from underneath you. But it doesn't. You just don't see your actual baseline for the first time until you hit the slow season, and that's normal. And notice one more thing. My merchandise stayed strong through the entire quiet season. I sold 170, then 199, then 213 pieces of merch. In fact, March was like actually one of my best non-holiday months for merchandise. So even when the books went quiet, the higher margin merch just keeps working. And again, books are the volume. Merch is the margin. Remember, I told you merch carries a better margin than books, meaning it's often what keeps the lights on. Well, watch what merch did as a share of what I sell. So back in September, merch was 35 units against 315 books, and that's roughly 10%. By December, it's 309 books against 891. And notice one more thing. My merch stayed strong throughout the entire quiet season. 170, 199, 213. March merch was actually one of the best non-holiday months we've had. Even when books went quiet, that higher margin merch just keeps working. And again, books are the volume, merch is the margin. I think this is when I truly realized why you see so much merch in big box stores. Merch pays the bills, but we're still mostly books here, so there's all that. Now let's look at the spring and the start of the summer. April, books 589, merch 176. May, books 531, merch 175. June, books 519, merch 144. So books basically held at that 500 to 600 range, which is stable. It's nice. It's not growing much. It's not falling much. It's right there. That's my baseline showing itself very clearly in the business. Somewhere around 500 to 600 books a month is my real sustainable normal once I strip out all the opening buzz and my holiday frenzy. The industry says summer is typically the slowest season of the year for bookstores. June is my first real summer month, and my books came in at 519, which is honestly right in line with my spring, not dramatically lower. So did I hit the summer slowdown? Honestly, it's too early to say. I'm just walking into my first summer as a shop. I'm halfway into July, and I really can't predict whether we'll meet or exceed or fall short of what our June numbers were. Maybe July and August will drop hard. Maybe they don't. That's exactly the kind of thing I'll only know once I've been through it. And you know I'm going to report back about that because this is what we're doing here. So 10 months, 2 primary product categories, 4 seasons. What are the 3 key lessons that I've learned? Well, lesson 1 is that your average may lie to you. Across these 10 months, my books averaged about 664 books a month. That sounds great, right? But that number can be a trap. Mine were pulled way up by the huge October to November opening surge and the holidays. My real baseline, my actual normal once things settled, is more like 500 to 600 books a month. So if I'd used that 664 average to project my future, I'd have overplanned and set myself up for disappointment. Your average hides your baseline. Know the difference or it's going to fool you. Lesson 2, Books are a volume game, and merch keeps you alive. So books are the overwhelming majority of what I sell by unit. There's no question about that. But merch went from 10% of my volume to over a third of my volume. And it held strong even when my books went quiet. And it carries a much better margin the entire year. So the thing you will sell the most of is not necessarily the thing keeping you alive. You need both, doing their two different jobs and doing them well. Lesson 3. The seasons are very real, but you have to live them to know them. The quiet season hit exactly like the industry says. The holidays were huge for merch, just like they say. But I couldn't see the real fall build because opening buzz scrambled it. And I'm in the slow summer months now, but I live in a tourist area, so we may feel less of a slowdown than a town without tourists. But 1 year in, I can see the shape of the seasons, but I won't really know my patterns until I've been through the year a few more times. And that's the honest truth about this business. Your first year may not be your norm, but it's absolutely a year of learning. So that's almost a year of our real bookstore numbers. I'm going to do this again after year 2 because then I can put my second fall next to my first fall, my second quiet season next to my first quiet season, and actually start to see what's a pattern and what's a fluke. So if you want to see how year 2 compares, subscribe and stick around for more videos. Of course, I want to hear from you. If you run a shop, does this match what your seasons look like? Did your quiet season hit harder this year than most? If you're dreaming of opening a brick and mortar bookstore, which of these numbers surprised you most? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. All right, I'm Lucas, owner of Spineless Reads Fiction Bookstore here in Williamsburg, Virginia, and I'll see you in the next video.